Mr. Johnson's French, a perfect fit for the entertainment.
As I passed by Evelyn, she whispered it just loud enough for us to hear, a smug look on her face. That mocking sneer, so unfit for a bride on her wedding day. The speech I prepared for Scott's surprise was actually a trap set by Evelyn to humiliate us, my husband and me. Evelyn had always looked down on us for being dropouts, hurling insults at every opportunity. With her Harvard degree, she often belittled us with her favorite phrase, just dropouts. Her insistence that we participate in the wedding if we wanted to attend was probably a scheme to make us the laughingstock in front of her family. Dropouts giving a speech in French? Impossible, she must have thought. Evelyn probably expected a pitiful, broken French-speaking old man trying to show off. We'll be fine. Don't worry about us. Just look forward to it. We reassured Scott, who looked anxious, determined to put Evelyn's arrogance in check. I grasped the microphone firmly. I'm Violet, turning 70 this year. Though we faced some hardships in our youth, we now live an ordinary life as a regular family. We've always cherished Scott, our eldest son, sparing him the struggles we endured. Our efforts paid off when he met a woman and decided to marry. Sadly, this wedding made us face hardships once again. The first time we met Evelyn, our future daughter-in-law, was when they visited us for a family meeting. Initially, Evelyn seemed modest and gentle, so we were happy that such a wonderful person would become Scott's wife.
We were thinking of just submitting the marriage papers and skipping the ceremony.
What a waste! Let's celebrate it properly.
Yeah, we can contribute financially, so have a nice ceremony.
Our discussion about the wedding was cordial throughout. It changed when Taylor, my husband, started talking about Scott's past. We're glad he was born smart, unlike us. He even went to a national university.
Evelyn, didn't Taylor graduate from a public university?
No, we didn't go to high school.
What? So, are you both dropouts?
Evelyn asked, looking surprised. We had to help with the family business instead of going to school. Though not something to be proud of, we just smiled wryly at her reaction. We had always wished to study like everyone else, but we were proud of our family and didn't resent our circumstances. It's quite shocking to hear dropouts, isn't it?
Yes, it's a relief Scott didn't inherit the lack of intelligence.
What do you mean?
Having dropouts as in-laws, it's making a silk purse out of a sow's ear,
she said with a smile. The room went silent in an instant. While it wasn't something to brag about, her blatant disrespect made Taylor and me exchange looks of disbelief. We were shocked by her cruel words, but she seemed unbothered, even asking playfully,
"Oh, was that too difficult for dropouts?"
Her carefree smile left us speechless. We swallowed our words, choosing to believe she meant no harm. However, Evelyn's behavior was nothing but malicious, looking down on us as pitiable, uneducated in-laws. It must have been because of the word dropout that they thought we were pathetic in-laws with no education. Ever since then, she started hurling insults at us every opportunity, with an attitude you'd never imagine from the first impression.
You two got married quite young, didn't you? Was that because there was nothing else to do?
That's not true. We really got to know each other and then decided to marry.
A time when free love was possible, huh? But still, ending up marrying a dropout, it means you could only find someone on the same level, right?
Evelyn, while smiling and lifting the corners of her mouth, had malice in every word she uttered. Despite the terrible things she said, neither Taylor nor I could get through to her. She wouldn't listen, always retorting with,
"What do you know? You didn't even finish school."
In front of Scott, she seemed to wear a mask, but when he wasn't around, she'd come over and say whatever she pleased. Indeed, Evelyn is a brilliant Harvard graduate, but her arrogance was a stark reminder that education and character don't necessarily go hand in hand. Even as the wedding preparations progressed, Evelyn's attitude only worsened. When she came over, she'd look at the meal I prepared and say mockingly,
"A dropout can cook, huh?"
Another time she said,
"Living in such a nice house as a dropout. I guess it's because of Scott, huh?"
She even said something like he was indebted to Scott.
"Don't be rude to Dad, Evelyn. This house was bought with Dad's earning." "Scott is so kind. He must have helped a lot, right?"
Scott tried to correct her, but she just looked at us smugly, saying,
"I didn't mean any harm."
Her disdainful gaze seemed filled with malice, and she acted as if my speaking up was simply me being a nuisance.
"There's no way a dropout could earn enough to build a house. That's what my friends say too."
To top it off, Evelyn spread baseless rumors about us relying on Scott's income and living a lavish life, which was disheartening.
"Don't think just because I married Scott that I'll take care of you. I'm part of his family, not a burden like you."
That's a relief. We wouldn't want someone who can speak so cruelly to take care of us.
"No use pretending, you know. Oh, and don't bother us anymore, thinking you're still connected to Scott."
Despite our protests, Evelyn seemed convinced we were still relying on Scott and kept making snide remarks. Frustrated, I could only sigh. In the midst of all this, Evelyn made an unexpected request. She wanted us to give a speech at the wedding as a sort of a performance.
"You've contributed to the wedding costs, so I'll let you attend. In return, can I ask a favor? And it's a surprise for Scott, so keep it a secret."
Such short notice is troublesome.
"I'm sorry for the oversight, but it's already scheduled, so we can't change it."
A speech, huh? Well, I guess that's okay. Despite my misgivings about her intentions, I resignedly agreed. We consented to her request for a 10-minute speech, though we suspected something. Surely she wouldn't harass us during a speech, but as soon as I agreed, Evelyn narrowed her eyes, smiled wickedly, and said,
"Great! Then please give your speech in French tomorrow."
"French? Why on earth?" Surprised, I asked her, and she looked down at me triumphantly. Her expression confirmed that Evelyn held nothing but malice towards us.
"Like me, my friends are all Harvard elites. I don't want to be looked down upon because my in-laws are dropouts."
But just because they're elites doesn't mean it has to be in French, right? What about the other guests?
"Ah, right. French must be too much for a pair of dropouts like you. Making excuses? How embarrassing."
Evelyn, with her continuous sarcasm, forced us into a corner and left after saying,
"If you're attending, you'd better keep your promise."
I glanced at Taylor with a troubled look, but he just shook his head silently. As I was pondering what to do, Scott called.
"Mom, are you okay? Everything all right?"
"Yes, I'm fine. Why do you ask?"
"I heard from Evelyn that you guys were going to liven up the wedding, so I thought maybe she went to bother you again."
Scott sounded apologetic. It seemed he called because he was worried about us due to Evelyn's excessive behavior.
"I wonder if choosing Evelyn as a partner was a mistake. I never thought someone could change so much just because of their education."
Scott muttered this quietly. sounding defeated. I couldn't let our proud son, who never discriminated based on education and grew up kind, worry anymore. Taylor and I exchanged glances and nodded. We're fine, don't worry about us. We're looking forward to the wedding. After reassuring Scott, we started preparing our speech. Determined to give Evelyn a taste of her own medicine, we headed to the wedding venue the next day. The wedding day itself seemed to go smoothly, except for Evelyn's friends who sneered at us from their seats. Even in the hallway, someone deliberately bumped into me without apologizing, likely influenced by something Evelyn said. I'm sure Evelyn was asking something about us, as she didn't even apologize and looked at us with a mocking smile on her face as she left.
You okay, Violet?
Yes, I'm fine. I could guess what they'd been told, but it was shocking that people could behave so rudely to someone they just met. Their character itself was questionable. If I had a silk purse out of a sow's ear, they must be birds of a feather. Sighing, I composed myself. I didn't retort to them, waiting for the right moment to strike back.
Now let's have a surprise speech from the groom's parents.
The announcer's cheerful voice prompted us to look up. Scott looked at us in surprise. Beside him, Evelyn, looking very unbride-like, sneered at us.
A speech in French by Dropout elders, perfect for entertainment.
As we passed Evelyn, she whispered this so only we could hear, smirking triumphantly. I wanted to slap that smug look off her face, but held back and took the microphone from the announcer. I took a deep breath before beginning my speech. First, let me tell you a bit about us. The moment I started, Evelyn's eyes widened in surprise at the edge of my vision. She must have been looking forward to a poor speech in broken French from an elderly dropout, while I may not have been as fluent as a native speaker. It was enough to disappoint her. Taylor even surprised everyone by speaking not only French but also Japanese and Chinese. Seeing Evelyn's shocked face, I smiled mischievously.
Why can you give such a speech? It's strange for dropouts.
Don't assume education sums up everything about a person, I replied quietly, then continued my speech. I revealed in French how Evelyn disliked our educational background, how she suddenly asked us to speak French the day before, how demanding she was, saying we should do it since we were attending the wedding. I aired all her insults in French. I wanted to say more, but Evelyn, who lost her composure, interrupted the speech, ending it abruptly. Still, her bizarre behavior caused a stir among the guests, and seeing Evelyn's defeated face felt like sufficient revenge.
Sorry for the trouble, but that was a surprise speech from the groom's parents. Thank you.
No, thank you.
That was impressive pronunciation. Did you study abroad?
No, I'm embarrassed to say I only went to school up to junior high. While it's true that I dropped out, it was to help with the family business. Taylor also dropped out, but like me, he helped his family and not only turned their company around, but grew it significantly. He's now the CEO. Taylor worked hard and climbed up from nothing, even starting his own company. He had the talent to acquire necessary knowledge through self-study, so not being able to attend school was a minor issue for him. Taylor and I met through work. Realizing we had similar backgrounds, he helped with my family's business, a great benefactor. I really appreciate you helping my family. I don't know how to thank you enough. If you want to thank me, work with me. Having someone who shares the same struggles is reassuring. So I married Taylor and worked in his company until I retired. Since his company also did international business, Taylor and I could speak French fluently. I turned to Evelyn with a smile and said, The one who asked us to give a speech in French at this wonderful place was the bride. She arranged this to ensure that we, as dropouts, wouldn't be ridiculed by her and her high-educated friends from Harvard. Evelyn, who had requested the speech in French, seemed unable to understand it well and looked troubled. She probably didn't understand the content of our earlier speech. Her earlier outburst was likely due to her dislike of us speaking French fluently, her usual habit. I waved with a smile, and to my surprise, Evelyn waved back, her usual sarcasm gone, as she remained silent, looking down. Evelyn's guests, unlike her, seemed to have understood the speech well, their smiles quickly fading. Even her parents looked the same. The celebratory mood changed, and Evelyn, looking terrified, was glared at by relatives, appearing uncomfortable. Like a lion in a den, her plans to mock us backfired and everything went awry. My husband and I exchanged smiles, not expecting our speech to have such an effect. Scott, sitting beside a pale-faced Evelyn, caught our eye and smiled, giving a thumbs up. Afterward, as expected, Evelyn faced severe criticism from her relatives, especially her parents, who had business dealings with Taylor's company, came to us after the ceremony, bowing their heads and informing us. We tried to calm them as they stopped us on our way out, forcing Evelyn, still in her beautiful dress, to bow and apologize.
Our daughter was terribly rude. We're so sorry.
It's okay. Even if they're family, they're separate individuals.
I didn't know about this. It wasn't supposed to be like this.
Well, of course you never listened to me. You were so happy making a silk purse out of a sow's ear. When I revealed this in front of her parents, they both turned red and glared at Evelyn. Evelyn's face grew even paler.
We will make sure she reflects thoroughly at home. We'll re-educate her to ensure this never happens again.
It's okay. She became a part of our son's family, not ours. We were already considered severed ties. Evelyn, at these final words, had tears in her eyes. Her parents seemed quite intimidating, but that was not our concern. Moreover, her friends who believed baseless rumors about us being terrible dropouts also cut ties, embarrassed by their own misconceptions.
Why do I have to suffer like this? If Scott had told me, this wouldn't have happened. I did tell you. I had enough earnings to build a house and didn't need any help. In fact, they even paid for all my tuition. I never heard that. Well, you never listened to anything I said.
With that cold response, Scott turned his back on Evelyn. Even the usually gentle Scott had reached his limit and was considering divorce despite the recent wedding. Abandoned by relatives, friends, and Scott, Evelyn stood alone and desolate at the wedding venue. A few days after the wedding, Scott, still contemplating divorce, hoped Evelyn would sincerely reflect, so their marriage continued for now. Abandoned by Scott, Evelyn, as if transformed, was working diligently.
Violet, can you please forgive the past and be friends again?
Friends again? I don't think we ever were. In front of Scott, she seemed remorseful, but towards us, she often tried to cozy up, apologizing. Unfortunately, I'm not the one to easily forget. I pretended not to notice her intentions to reconcile with Scott and his parents, and ignored her. Who was it that said to consider our ties severed?
Stop it, will you? Stop pretending to be senile and just help me, okay? Holding a grudge forever. How mean can you get?
Yes, you're right. Just like you trying to enjoy the French of dropout elders for entertainment. Frustrated by my retort, Evelyn glared at me. Her unrepentant attitude might truly sever our ties. Where does such pride come from in someone who looks down on others and refuses to repent? Recently, a relative who had recorded the wedding sent us the footage. We burst out laughing watching the bride's shocked face during my speech. School isn't the only place to learn. Maybe I'll start learning something new too. Why not? I might join you in that. We decided to go to a bookstore together to look for study materials.